Hi, my name is Cynthia Matuszek. I'm an assistant professor here. I teach the artificial intelligence and robotics classes, among other things. And I've been asked to give a talk on the topic of academic integrity and academic honesty and what that's going to mean for you as a grad student at UMBC, as well as give some examples and give you some idea what some of the places are that people run into trouble. So some high-level things that it's important to understand are that academic integrity at UMBC may not be what you are used to. It may be the case that you need to change your behaviors or expectations from what you've encountered previously. So things to take away: what counts as cheating, what kinds of things will get you in trouble, is cultural. It's not necessarily the case that what you've done so far is a good source of information for what you should do now. You may need to learn new rules. You may need to internalize those new rules. And I'm going to do my best to give you some idea what some of the failure modes there can be. And in particular, academic integrity issues may be more serious than you are used to. It is not unusual if you engage in some kind of academic integrity violation for you to fail that class, be suspended, or asked to leave the university. You're grad students, so the expectation is that you're already on top of maybe I should do my own work, which means there's a very small number of offenses that are considered acceptable. It should be noted also that any upheld violations, any academic integrity issue that is upheld, will make you ineligible for departmental funding. That means you'll be ineligible for TA or greater positions for the remainder of your time at UMBC. So just in case you hadn't gotten the impression, this is one of the doom and gloom lectures. I'm going to try to end on a high note, but I really don't want people to run into trouble in the program just because they don't know what the expectations are. So let's talk about what those expectations are. Academic integrity expectations include expectations of instructors. The instructor's responsibilities are to be respectful of you and your time. Be fair to all the students, grade everybody fairly, and give you what you need to succeed. Be available. A lot of problems can be fixed by talking to your instructor, which means that your instructor is responsible for making sure that you can find them and do that. And give you the information you need to know how you'll be graded and what's going to happen and how the course is going to work. The students' responsibilities are be respectful of fellow students, the instructor, and the goals of the course. Don't cheat, plagiarize, or lie. Don't help anybody else to do these things. And don't do anything that will interfere with other students' academic activities, their ability to accomplish things and receive grades. Why are we talking about this so much? Well, two high-level reasons. The first is that academic dishonesty leads to poor education. It's difficult to teach effectively and make sure people understand material without being able to evaluate what they really understand and how it's really going. It's unfair to other students if some people cheat and some don't, to figure out how to grade people and evaluate people for how well they're doing. And hopefully, you can't learn what you're supposed to learn in a class without doing the work. That's why we assign work. We don't do it as busy work or to demonstrate that you're doing something with your time. The second major reason is that this is part of your professional preparation. This is part of your professional education. The behaviors that I'm going to discuss that could cause you to fail a class or be suspended from the university, the same behaviors are likely to cause somebody to be fired in the workforce. And it is necessary that, part of your education is that you learn what those behaviors are and how serious they are. So as a takeaway, academic dishonesty interferes with your education. And when you go to graduate school, you're paying for an education. You're paying to learn. You're not just paying to get a degree that you can use to get a job. UMBC has adopted an academic integrity policy, which professors are encouraged but not required to present to students. This is the high-level policy. I've highlighted the part that I think is most important, which is cheating, fabrication, plagiarism, and helping others to do those things are wrong. And they are academic misconduct that will lead to consequences. And that's fine. You should hold yourself to those standards. But I want to talk a little about, in detail, about what is academic dishonesty. Where do we see these things occur? The most common places that you'll encounter academic dishonesty in your graduate program are in the form of plagiarism, cheating, abetting, and fabrication. Plagiarism and abetting are the most common forms, so we'll discuss a fair number of examples there. I will cover cheating and fabrication in less detail. Cheating. In general, people know what straight-up cheating is. Using materials that you're not supposed to use, using information that you're not supposed to use, using study aids or exam aids that you're not supposed to have access to. This includes, for example, finding all the previous exam questions by that professor on the internet and looking up the answers and studying based on that. Any lie or act of deceit where you try to misrepresent how much you know and how much work you put into something. So some kinds of cheating include copying or collaborating on a test or assignment when you're not supposed to, using any kind of prohibited materials, any misuse of an electronic device, and using any deceptive means to gain academic credit. So that's a very broad category. Some obvious examples are communicating during an exam, sneaking notes into an exam, turning in homework after the professor has, for example, started discussing the answers in class, and receiving help on the assignment when you're not supposed to. Okay? All of these will be dealt with fairly severely for all the reasons that I described at the beginning. Fabrication is more of an issue later in your research career, but it's also an issue when you're doing, for example, projects where you're required to have results. Fabrication is falsification or invention of any data. Inventing or exaggerating data, listing references that don't exist, or that aren't the correct reference for the source of some kind of information. You know, if you're supposed to run some learning system for 300 epochs and you only run it for 50 and then extrapolate the curve, put that in a paper and claim that you're in it for 300, that's fabrication. Okay. Plagiarism is where people get into the most trouble, and in my opinion is where we encounter the largest number of things where people don't realize that what they're doing is wrong or is going to cause trouble. Plagiarism broadly is representing words or ideas from somebody else as your own. That includes writing, it includes coding, it includes insights, it includes artistic endeavor, including but not limiting to copying any other work, presenting someone else's information as your own, working jointly on a project or getting help with a project and then submitting it as if it was your own, even using your own previously submitted work without acknowledgement. Self-plagiarism is a thing. So let's give some examples. And these are all examples that I've personally encountered. The references in the bibliography. Yes, that's good. It means you're trying. But if you didn't explicitly say, this text came from this source, and cite the source where you use the text, it still counts as plagiarism. Only a few sentences, some of the words, maybe a paragraph or something, are drawn from another source. That's not good enough. Scattering some of your own words and rephrasing a paragraph from Wikipedia is still plagiarism. You have to read your sources, think about them, and write down from scratch what you have learned. The only material that is borrowed from elsewhere is the introduction or background material, maybe a definition of machine learning or something. It doesn't matter. if somebody else's words appear in any document, or if somebody else's materials occur in any document, it's plagiarism. If there's just one function that's like a background function to do string management, but you don't cite it, you don't say where it came from, it's plagiarism. Some more examples. It was a draft. It wasn't an official assignment. This isn't the final turn-in that I have to do. If you use somebody else's text or code as your own, even informally, it's plagiarism. It must always be clear what you did. I'm drawing from a source that the professor told me to use. Unless the professor explicitly says, and use these pieces from that source, it's plagiarism. You have to reference things even if they're from sources that you were provided. This one is kind of heartbreaking. This was a group project and I didn't do that section. Usually, if your name is on a document, you are fully responsible for the content of that document. It doesn't matter if you personally didn't write that section. You need to read the whole thing and work with your colleagues and make sure that you take responsibility. If you publish a paper, for example, or send a report to your boss in a group of 3, and it turns out that that has to be retracted because parts of it were plagiarized or fabricated, everybody is going to be in trouble. It's not... Your responsibilities don't end at the end of your paragraph. Some more examples. I wrote this for a previous class. I wrote this for a different class. Self-plagiarism is still a form of plagiarism. Just check with the instructor. Say, I've done something like this. Is it okay if I bring some of it over? It's just a small piece. It's just a small piece of code. It's just a small piece of text. Again, if you didn't write it and it's not properly cited and referenced, it counts as plagiarism. But I found it someplace that you would consider a resource. I found it on Stack Exchange. Somebody posted the exam questions. It doesn't matter how widespread the cheating is or the availability of the answers are. It's still your responsibility not to plagiarize. Cite it appropriately or check with the instructor if it's okay. Okay, so that's a whole lot about plagiarism, but it can be summarized in, I think, the following points. Of academic misconduct that we encounter is abetting. And abetting or assisting means helping someone else commit an act of academic dishonesty. That includes assisting with an exam or an assignment, letting someone else see your answers or your code, even if they're just looking it over for reference or ideas, putting someone's name on a task they didn't help with. If it's supposed to be a group assignment and somebody dropped out in the middle, just putting their name on it anyway is abetting. Posting your answer somewhere, even if it's just Stack Exchange and you don't explicitly list the class name. You'd be surprised how easy it is for people to find that. And providing an exam or an assignment or exam questions and their answers, but even without their answers, to other people. If you give somebody the previous exams from a class that you took the previous semester, it's still abetting. The problem with abetting is you're probably trying to help. People are having trouble, your classmates are having trouble, and you want to help them, right? You don't want them to struggle. You don't want them to suffer. That's extremely reasonable. That's appropriate. You shouldn't want them to suffer. But you are not helping them. You're setting them up for an academic dishonesty charge. It's still academically dishonest on your part. If you just posted something to your own GitHub repository and you don't think your classmates will find it, but they do, you're still responsible for abetting. It's your responsibility to make sure you're not helping other people cheat. For that reason, and because we can't read minds, usually any form of helping somebody else cheat or plagiarize will result in you receiving the same penalty as they do. As a side note, that means that if you let someone else help you cheat, you're setting them up to be punished. If you ask someone to help you with an assignment that you're struggling with and they end up looking over your code and making suggestions when they're not supposed to, you're setting them up to fail that assignment, to fail the class, to be expelled from the university. It turns out that your instructor is the person that you should be talking to when you're struggling. We're here to help. We really want to help. We are making ourselves available to you. Don't go to your classmates. Go to your instructor. Go to your TA. Okay. So, just a brief note on how does this stuff happen? Probably everybody is listening to this and thinking, but I'm not going to do that. And eventually, sometimes people will. Why is that? One of the big reasons is you get stressed about time. That happens. Deadlines come around faster than you saw them coming. You procrastinate on something. You think something's going to be easy and you put it off to the last minute, and then you discover it's going to take more time than you've allowed. You've just got too much on your plate at any given time. Basically, a lot of why people commit academic misconduct is desperation. Desperation for grades and desperation to get things done when they can't. First off, if you're having time management problems, talk to your instructor. Generally, people can help. Another big reason is you're stressed, you're overwhelmed. The transition to a new university, a new academic program, sometimes a new country, can be incredibly stressful and incredibly overwhelming. Again, this can lead to just a general sense that I can't possibly do this without resorting to some of these techniques. Everybody has these moments. Talk to somebody. Again, find a mentor. Talk to your advisor. Most of you have been assigned a temporary advisor. Talk to your instructor. But don't compound your problems by getting dinged for academic dishonesty. Sometimes you just don't understand. You don't know what you're supposed to do. The material's difficult. You don't know how to do it. You don't know how to answer the questions. You're encountering problems. This is a prime example of when you should go to the professor or the TA. But if you can't, if you've left it to the last minute and you just can't, it is still better to get a 0 and talk to people afterwards than to get caught engaging in academic misconduct. There's a sort of a big test pressure. A lot of people blank out. Facing a big test, a lot of people encounter just sort of, they go blank, they feel paralyzed, they feel like they can't do it. And you probably can. The biggest solution for this that I've ever found is to try to get enough sleep the night before, even if that means you study less. If you find yourself in these crunches, seek help, but don't seek help don't seek help from Wikipedia. Don't seek help by copying and pasting code from Stack Exchange. Don't seek help from your classmates on things they're not supposed to help you with. Seek help from your instructor. And when you see these things coming and you come to us, nobody's going to think you're dumb. Nobody's going to think you don't belong in the program. Nobody's going to say, well, if you had just started this sooner, blah, 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 so I can't help you. We're all aware that these are things that occur. The correct way to handle it in academia, in the workforce, and in life is to bounce upward and say, these are the problems I'm having. This is why I can't do it. Okay. The other two big reasons are some people have an it's okay to cheat mentality. Maybe you've done it before. Maybe you've engaged in some of these behaviors before. Maybe people have winked and let it slide before. It's not okay. It's not okay at UMBC. It's not okay in the classes that you will take here. If you take nothing else from this talk, I do want you to take away, it is not okay to cheat. All right? There's also a certain amount of I won't get caught mentality. Sooner or later you will. And you've got a very, very, very small number of strikes before you're asked to leave the university. I wouldn't risk it. Okay. The consequences for academic misconduct, and this is a partial list, include a 0 grade for the assignment, some kind of academic penalty for the entire course. It's common to lose a letter grade, a full letter grade, for every academic misconduct encountered. Get an F grade for the class with no option to drop the class. Suspension from the program. Expulsion from the program. You are asked to leave the computer science or electrical engineering or whichever program you're in. Or expulsion from the university. You can be asked to leave UMBC. All of these things have occurred. All of these things have occurred in our program. All of these things have occurred in our program in the last 5 years. It will happen. All right. Now, I said I would try to end on a high note. Everything I've said so far is very gloom and doom. This is all very, like, don't do this, don't do that, you'll get expelled. And that's partly because we do have problems with it. And we have problems with it because people don't know what to expect. And I'm doing my best to tell you what to expect. But the fact is, it's easy not to commit academic misconduct. Don't cheat. Don't copy stuff from other people or other places. And don't help other people cheat or copy text or code from other places. If you're having trouble, talk to someone. If you take it seriously, if you believe me when I say it's not okay to cheat and you don't have to cheat, you'll be fine, then none of this will ever apply to you. We're all going to have problems. Everybody gets stressed. Everybody gets behind. There will be classes where things aren't going the way you want. As long as you find ways to deal with those problems other than the topics that I've covered and any other topics that your specific professor provides, you'll be fine. You really will. So welcome to UMBC. Your first exposure to me as a person is me yelling at you for 20 minutes about academic integrity. I'm sorry about that, but I and everybody else here want you to do well. That's our goal. So I'll be available. Please feel free to ask me any questions about this, either at the orientation or in general. You can send me email. You can find me. And I look forward to having you in my classes.